Even everyday items can turn deadly if you're unlucky enough. From household tools to seemingly harmless devices, some people have met their untimely end in the most shocking and unexpected ways. Let's look at 5 most horrific deaths of people killed by seemingly harmless everyday objects. We all have our routines, things we do without a second thought. Maybe it's grabbing a morning coffee, taking a daily jog, or unwinding with a favorite TV show. For Peggy and Wendell Jones, their routine on July 25, 2023 was simple. Tackle the lawn at their investment property in Silsbee, Texas, and then head out for a fun night at the casino. It was supposed to be just another day. Wendell worked on the front yard while Peggy hopped on the riding mower and headed to the back. The heat was thick, the sky a bright, endless blue. Then, out of nowhere, something dropped from above. Something alive. A snake. A 4-foot-long, writhing serpent, falling straight from the sky like a nightmare made real. Before she could react, it landed on her right arm and coiled itself tightly around her skin. And it wasn't just hanging on, it was fighting. Peggy barely had time to process what was happening before the snake started striking at her face. Venom sprayed onto her glasses, missing her eyes by sheer luck. She flailed her arm, desperate to shake the creature loose, but the more she struggled, the tighter it gripped. At the same time, she had to keep control of the mower, all while screaming for help. But with the roar of the engine and the distant hum of highway traffic, her husband couldn't hear her. Then the second attacker arrived. A brown and white hawk appeared, wings spread wide, talons ready. It dived straight at Peggy's arm, grabbing at the snake, trying to snatch it away. But the snake wasn't giving up easily. What followed was a wild, frenzied battle, a tug-of-war between predator and prey, with Peggy caught in the middle. The hawk swooped down 4 more times, each attack more aggressive than the last. Finally, on the 5th attempt, it yanked the snake away, tearing it from Peggy's arm and soaring into the sky with its writhing prize. Just like that, the nightmare was over. But the damage had been done. Blood covered Peggy's arm, deep lacerations, claw marks, punctures, her skin torn apart by both snake and bird. Shaken and in pain, she finally managed to get Wendell's attention. The moment he saw her, panic set in. Without hesitation, he rushed her to the emergency room. Doctors cleaned her wounds, bandaged her arm, and gave her antibiotics. Physically, she would recover, but mentally, that was another story. Peggy couldn't close her eyes without seeing it all over again. The snake dropping from the sky, its fangs flashing, the hawk's talons ripping through the chaos. Sleep became elusive. Worse, her arm was left weak, nearly useless, making daily tasks a challenge. Thankfully, she wasn't alone. Wendell, along with their children and grandchildren, stepped up to help, making sure her wounds were cared for and that she never had to relive the nightmare alone. But the question remained, how? How does a snake fall from the sky? Had the hawk dropped it mid-flight? Had it been snatched from a tree, only to wriggle free, landing in the worst possible place? The odds of such an event seemed impossible. And yet it happened. Peggy's story wasn't just an unlucky accident. It was a chilling reminder that nature is unpredictable. One moment, you're mowing your lawn. The next, you're trapped in a battle between predator and prey, fighting for control of your own arm. Sometimes, the most terrifying things don't come from nightmares. They fall from the sky, unannounced, and change your life forever. For Delry Rosario and her sister Marissa Woods, hitting the gym was more than just a habit. It was a part of their daily rhythm. Nearly every day, they laced up their sneakers and headed to the LA Fitness Center in Kent, Washington, ready to push themselves, to sweat, to feel that familiar burn as they ran on the treadmill. It was their time to reset, to focus, to let the stress of the world melt away. But on July 21st, 2023, that familiar routine took a devastating, unthinkable turn. One moment, Rosario was running, her feet pounding against the belt of the treadmill, her breath steady. The next, her world tilted, literally. Something went wrong. Maybe it was just a misstep. Maybe the treadmill malfunctioned. No one could say for sure. What is certain is that Rosario, a healthy, active 36-year-old, lost her balance as she attempted to slow the machine down. In a horrifying instant, she stumbled forward, her momentum working against her, and her head slammed into the front of the treadmill. The impact was brutal. The force knocked her off the machine, sending her crumpling to the gym floor. Marissa watched in horror as her sister collapsed. At first, she thought Delry would stir, shake it off, get back up, but she didn't. Panic surged through Marissa as she dropped to her knees, calling out her sister's name, shaking her, willing her to respond. But there was nothing, no movement, no sign of consciousness. A terrible, suffocating fear settled in. Marissa screamed for help, her voice rising above the hum of gym equipment and idle conversations. People turned. Some ran over. But, according to Marissa, none of the LA Fitness staff stepped forward to help. Not one of them performed CPR. Not one of them seemed to know what to do. It was strangers, fellow gym-goers who stepped in to assist. But by then, precious minutes had slipped away. The paramedics arrived as quickly as they could, pushing through the gym, equipment forgotten, people frozen in shock. They worked swiftly, lifting Rosario, stabilizing her, racing against time. Marissa could do nothing but follow, her heart pounding, her mind reeling. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was just another normal day, just another workout. At the hospital, the waiting was unbearable. Hours stretched into eternity. Marissa and her family clung to hope, desperately willing Rosario to wake up, to open her eyes, to squeeze someone's hand. But she never did. The doctors delivered the news no one wanted to hear. Delry Rosario was gone. The weight of the loss was crushing. How could someone so full of life, someone so strong, be gone in an instant? The shock of it all made it impossible to process. It didn't feel real. It didn't make sense. The gym, the place that had been a source of energy, strength, and routine, had become the site of unimaginable tragedy. Yet, even in the depths of their grief, something extraordinary happened. Delry Rosario had always been someone who gave without hesitation. She was the kind of person who would drop everything to help a friend, who would offer a warm smile to a stranger, who believed in kindness above all else, and even in death she continued to give. As an organ donor, Rosario saved the lives of 5 people, 5 individuals who had been clinging to hope, waiting for a miracle. Her heart, lungs, kidneys, and liver were transplanted, giving them a second chance at life. People she had never met, people she would never know, were given the most precious gift of all because of her. For her family, it was both a comfort and a heartbreak. Rosario was gone, but she wasn't truly lost. A part of her still lived on, beating in another's chest, breathing in another's lungs, carrying her legacy forward. The tragedy of that day would never fade. The questions would never fully be answered, but one thing remained undeniable. Rosario's spirit, her love, her generosity, had outlived her final breath. For Tom Josie, a routine dental appointment should have been just that, routine. At 60 years old, the Antioch, Illinois resident had sat in the dentist's chair more times than he could count. A simple tooth filling wasn't something to be nervous about. But what started as an ordinary visit on March 18, 2022, quickly spiraled into something out of a medical thriller, one that would land him in the hospital and leave doctors scrambling for a solution. Everything seemed fine at first. The dentist worked carefully, the drill buzzing as it smoothed out the damaged tooth. Then, out of nowhere, Yosi felt the urge to cough. It was a split-second reflex. Something he didn't think twice about until he realized something was wrong. He swallowed hard, feeling an odd sensation in his throat. That's when the dentist gave him the news no patient ever expects to hear. You just swallowed a drill bit. Yosi's mind raced. How was that even possible? He hadn't felt anything sharp going down. But the truth was, a 1-inch, 2.5 centimeters long drill bit had completely vanished, right into his body. The question was, where had it gone? At first, everyone assumed it had simply ended up in his stomach, but when doctors at a local hospital took x-rays, there was no sign of the missing tool. A CT scan revealed the shocking truth. The drill bit had bypassed his digestive system entirely. Instead of swallowing it, he had inhaled it. The tiny metal piece had slipped deep into his right lung, settling in the lower lobe, a place that traditional medical scopes couldn't reach. That's when things got even more serious. Because of its location, doctors feared that if they couldn't retrieve the drill bit, they might have to remove part of Yosi's lung. Surgery was a last resort. But at that point, it was looking like the only option. The idea of losing a piece of his lung over a dental mishap was almost too surreal to process. Yosi was transferred to a specialized hospital in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where medical experts took on the unusual case. But traditional methods weren't going to cut it. The drill bit was wedged too deep, in a place where even the longest scopes couldn't safely reach. It was time to think outside the box. That's where Dr. Abdul Al-Reyes and Dr. Hasnain Bawadam came in. They had access to an advanced piece of medical technology, a robotic bronchoscopy system. Typically used for detecting lung cancer at its earliest stages, this specialized tool was far more flexible and precise than traditional scopes. If anything had a chance of reaching the drill bit without damaging Yosi's lung, this was it. With careful precision, the doctors guided the robotic scope through Yosi's narrow lung pathways, navigating carefully to avoid harming the delicate tissue. The process required patience, skill, and a steady hand. If anything went wrong, it could lead to severe complications. But after 90 tense minutes, the team successfully reached the drill bit and carefully extracted it, without making a single incision. When Yosi woke up, the relief was overwhelming. Not only had the surgery gone exactly as planned, but he had been able to avoid losing any part of his lung. Even better, he was allowed to go home that very same day. Now, instead of being buried inside his body, the infamous drill bit sits proudly on a shelf in his home. A bizarre but unforgettable souvenir of the day a dental appointment turned into a medical mystery. Looking back, Yosi can't help but marvel at the absurdity of it all. A freak accident, a near miss with surgery, and a cutting-edge robotic procedure had all been part of his story. But most of all, he's just grateful to be breathing easy, literally. And as for the drill bit, well, let's just say he's keeping a much closer eye on dental tools from now on. On the morning of August 15th, 2023, William Jason Lamont Bell Sr. and his family were on a road trip from Chicago to Kentucky. What should have been an exciting journey took an unexpected and tragic turn when their vehicle got a flat tire along the busy interstate in northwest Indiana. It was late in the morning when the family's car came to a halt on the side of the road, and Bell Sr. stepped out to change the tire. His 15-year-old son, William Jason Lamont Bell Jr., was right behind him, eager to lend a hand. It was a father-son moment, something simple, something routine, but what happened next would change everything. As they worked to replace the tire, disaster struck without warning. A semi-truck, traveling in the same direction, suffered a mechanical failure. In the blink of an eye, one of the truck's rear wheels detached, rolling off the vehicle. With its tires still attached, the wheel careened down the highway, bouncing off the barrier wall and directly into the path of Bell Jr. and 4 others who were outside the vehicle. The impact was immediate and devastating. Police were quickly dispatched to the scene, and Bell Jr. was rushed to a nearby hospital for urgent care. However, his injuries were so severe that doctors determined they needed to transfer him to a hospital in Chicago, where he could receive more specialized care. Bell Jr. was placed on life support, clinging to life as his family hoped against hope. Sadly, after 3 agonizing days, on August 18, 2023, Bell Jr. passed away. His death left a hole in his family that could never be filled. Though the other 4 individuals involved in the accident sustained injuries, they were fortunate that their wounds were not life-threatening. The semi-truck driver was sent to a local hospital for a mandatory toxicology test. While authorities did not suspect drugs or alcohol played a role in the crash, the truck was impounded by state police for further inspection. They needed to understand how a simple road trip had turned into a nightmare, with a malfunction leading to the loss of a young life. For Bell Sr. and his family, the grief was overwhelming. A road trip meant to be filled with laughter and bonding had ended in heartbreak. Their son was gone, taken too soon by an accident no one could have predicted. The family now faced the painful journey of trying to heal from an unimaginable loss, forever carrying with them the memory of that tragic day. On December 22, 2021, Cheryl Grace Shoy Delphin Cabales, a 46-year-old mother, stopped at a Circle K gas station in Palm Harbor, Florida, to fill up her 2018 Honda SUV. It was just a normal, everyday errand, one that people across the world perform without a second thought. However, in a tragic twist, this routine task would end in heartbreak and chaos. As Cabales carefully began fueling her vehicle, a 66-year-old woman driving a 2006 Nissan sedan reversed her car into a nearby gas pump. The collision caused a violent disruption. The fuel dispenser was knocked off its base, and in the process, it toppled over, trapping Cabales between the pump and her own vehicle. Almost immediately, the gas pump ruptured, sparking flames that quickly engulfed the area. Inside the SUV were two of Cabales' children, aged 11 and 14. In a panic, the children scrambled to escape the burning vehicle, managing to free themselves from the inferno. But their mother was still trapped, pinned in place by the fallen pump, unable to break free. Desperate to help, they tried to save her, but the fire was growing too quickly, too intensely. As the flames licked at the edges of the SUV, their mother's life slipped away before their eyes. A glimmer of hope came in the form of 34-year-old Jared Pearson, a homeless man who was nearby when the explosion occurred. Pearson acted as quickly as he could, grabbing the fire extinguisher that was situated next to the gas pumps, trying to douse the flames and get to Cabales. He also managed to usher the children to safety, away from the growing fire and chaos. But despite his efforts, the flames were simply too intense to combat. The fire consumed everything in its path, and tragically, Cabales was unable to survive the horrific blaze. Pearson's bravery was commendable, but it was too late to save the mother of two, Cheryl Grace Shoy Delphin. Cabales was pronounced dead after being burned alive in the fire. Her family, heartbroken and devastated, now had to grapple with an unfathomable loss. A mother, a woman who had so much to live for, was gone in an instant, leaving her children and loved ones reeling in grief. As the months passed, the family struggled to understand how such a horrific accident could occur. In August of 2022, the family decided to take legal action, filing a lawsuit against multiple defendants. The suit targeted 13 entities, including Circle K Stores, Inc., and Shell Oil Company. The family's lawyers argued that the gas station's safety systems had failed miserably. Specifically, the device designed to stop the fuel flow in the event of a gas pump being damaged or struck by a vehicle wasn't functioning. Additionally, the Circle K employee working at the time didn't activate the emergency stop switch, which could have potentially halted the disaster before it spiraled out of control. The lawsuit sought accountability for the failure of the safety measures that could have, in theory, prevented the deadly fire. The tragic death of Cheryl Cabales left a lasting impact not only on her family, but on the broader community. It was a stark reminder of how something as ordinary as stopping for gas could turn into a life-altering nightmare in the blink of an eye. A family forever scarred by loss, an innocent woman caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and a tragedy that left behind more questions than answers.